Welcome back. And if it's your first time here, I'm glad you found this video. My name is Simi, and this is Slow English with Simi. Today, I want to do something a little different. I'm going to tell you a story, a real one, my own story. It's a story about the moment I decided to leave everything I knew and move abroad. And as I tell it, I'm going to use some phrasal verbs. Natural, the way any native English speaker would use it in conversations. Every time one comes up, I'll stop and explain it and say it again so it sticks. By the way, all the phrasal verbs I'll be using in this video will be in my mini phrasal verb PDF guide. I'll tell you more about it at the end, but for now, let's get into the story. So, it was in 2018. I was a teenager and I was already playing football. Seriously playing it. It wasn't a hobby. It was everything to me. Around that time, my mother had returned to Nigeria and she could see it, the way I trained, the way I talked about it, the way I moved on the pitch. She saw the passion and she had an idea. So she called me one day and said, "Simi, maybe it's time you travel abroad, just for the experience." Her plan was simple. Don't wait for an agent. Don't wait for someone to find you. Go yourself. Find Football Academy, train with them, show them what she can do, and let your game speak. And so, we decided to set off. Let me stop here. Set up. You heard that, right? This is a phrasal verb, meaning to begin a journey or to start going somewhere. For example, we set off with nothing but a plan and hope. So we decided to set off. Now, here is where it gets interesting. By the time my mother had called me to come live with her in a city, because I lived in Lagos with my uncle and she lived in Abuja right after she moved to Nigeria. She called me and said, "Just pack a few things, couple of days, come stay with me." So in my head, I was thinking, okay, short trip, nothing too serious. After a couple of weeks, I'll be back in Lagos. I got to Abuja thinking we're just gonna spend some time together, and she dropped the bombshell. She said, "You have a visa to travel to Moscow and you be leaving in a couple of days." And at that moment, I can't really tell if she had already gotten my tickets to fly out of the country, but it just didn't occur to me. I was leaving, I was traveling. I didn't get to say goodbye to my friends. I didn't get to say goodbye to my grandma or my cousins. I just, had less than 64 hours to plan for a trip. I got to Moscow and I did exactly what she said. The exact plan we had. Started to look into local teams and academies that would just allow me to train. That phrase there, look into. What does that mean? It means to search something, look into something, gather information. For example, I started to look into different teams that would allow me train with them, and I found one. It wasn't a professional club, but they were interested. They liked how I play and the energy I brought into the team. Keep in mind, this was just a short trip. It was more like a vacation, but also at the same time, I had a task that I had to execute, which was finding a team, which I did. And I was able to train with them. And once it was time for me to head back to Nigeria, I did. I left for Nigeria, feeling all accomplished and feeling like, yeah, I think there's something in store for me. So I went back to Nigeria, and long after that, the team invited me to return back to Moscow. But this time, not for a couple of days. It was for months, for weeks. And just like that, I picked up my life and I moved to Moscow. Now, pick up my life. The phrase pick up is a phrasal verb. It means to gather your things and move, or to uproot things and move them to another location. For example, she picked up a life at 20 and never looked back.
Now, one of the things that hit me when I arrived was the language, Russian. Russian is no joke.
My Russian level is around strong B1, and I'm still going and still learning. Mind you, I've been living here for over 5 years, although for a while I moved to Turkey, but we'll talk about that in a bit. And I'm still growing, still learning, because that's the thing about language. You don't just arrive at it, you grow into it. How many languages do you speak? Tell me in the comments, because I'm curious. I want to know. Living abroad sounds exciting. And it is, but it wasn't easy. Not even close. I was a teenager. No family with me. No relatives nearby. Just me. A city I was still figuring out. A language I could barely speak at that time. Every single day, I had to deal with something new. Deal with. You'll hear this phrase a lot in English. It means to face and handle a difficult situation, to manage what life throws at you. For example, living abroad means dealing with challenges you never even thought to prepare for. But every single day, I had to deal with something new. But there is a thing. I was raised to be independent. My parents trusted me, not blindly, but genuinely. They trusted me to make decisions that were right for my future. And so, without really having a choice, I learned to rely on myself. Rely on. This is a big one, a really important phrasal verb. This phrasal verb means to rely on something or someone, to trust that they would support you or come true. So I learned to rely on myself. And here's the thing. I believe you grow up really fast when you move abroad or when you immigrate to a different country at a really young age. And then you learn to rely on yourself. Not because someone tells you to, but because life doesn't really give you another option. So over the years, I kept growing as a player, training harder, moving to better teams, and pushing myself further. A new country, a new challenge. I was excited. But right before I went to Turkey, I got injured. An ACL injury, one of the most serious injury a football player can face. And it wasn't the first time. I had already had one ACL surgery in Russia, plus a meniscus injury. A lot of people in that position honestly give up, and I don't blame them. I also thought about giving up at some point because I felt like that's all life had in store for me. Give up. I want you to sit with this phrasal verb for a moment, meaning to walk away from something because it feels too hard. But I didn't. I recovered, and I went back to Nigeria. I rested, I reset, and I made a plan. But something had shifted inside me. I started thinking about the bigger picture. Not just the next season, but the next 10, 20 years. I thought about the life I wanted and I realized it was time to move on. Move on. That's a phrase that carries a lot of weight, meaning to leave something behind, a chapter, a relationship, a version of yourself, and step into what comes next. For example, it wasn't easy, but I knew it was time to move on from football. Soccer, by the way. I realized it was time to move on. And I want to be clear, I wasn't forced out of playing football. It was just a decision I made for myself, consciously, because I could see myself beyond football. And not everyone can say that. And that's where I'm gonna stop today, because what happened next, the path I chose, and how I went from playing football on the pitch in Moscow, moving to Turkey, and now becoming an online English teacher, that right there is a whole other story. And I wanna tell it properly, so if you wanna know what I did next, let me know in the comments. Tell me part 2. And I'll know it's time. Okay, that's my story, or at least part of it. If you've been watching this video, you've actually practiced phrasal verbs in context. You heard them in real story, not in textbooks. And that is exactly how language learning should feel. Now, if you want to go deeper with phrasal verbs, I made something for you. I have a mini phrasal verb PDF. It covers the most common phrasal verbs in English. Clear meaning, real examples and exercises to actually help you practice. And remember then, the link is in the description. Go check it out. That is actually our last phrasal verb, meaning to look at something, to visit it, to explore, to take a look, to see if it's for you. Example, check out the PDF in the description. I think it's really help you. Go check it out. Everything is in one place. The PDFs, my ebooks, and my trial classes. So if you'd love to be my students as well, check the link in the description.